First story, am I the a-hole here for refusing to host my niece and sister at Christmas and sending them to a hotel? Between Christmas and New Year, my husband, 39 male, and I, 37 male, are hosting about 30 people, including my sister, Gil, 23, and her daughter, Ella, 6, with another 10 who came for Christmas dinner. The dinner was black tie, and my husband and I set up a table in a room adjacent to the dining room for the children, which is, in my experience, pretty standard practice, as sitting at with the adults and having to adhere to stricter table manners might be a bit overwhelming, especially as they're all quite young. The youngest is 4 and the oldest is 9. When I was explaining how dinner would be arranged, Gil said she wanted Ella to eat with the adults as she didn't want her by herself. I said I understood her concern, and if she's worried she could just check on Ella from time to time to make sure she was all right, as the other parents undoubtedly would be doing. When Gil insisted, I said that while it would be a shame not to have her with us, everyone would understand if Gil wanted to eat with Ella at the children's table. This seemed to make her particularly frustrated, and she accused me of trying to humiliate her, and followed it with, "I didn't know such a F-slur would be so uptight about the rules." This was completely out of the blue. Our relationship is nothing out of the ordinary for siblings, if a little distant just because of the age gap. She hasn't ever, in front of me, said that word before either, so I doubt she meant it in a particularly malicious way, or would have said it if she wasn't a bit drunk. While I can sympathize greatly with the worry about her daughter, she is a young mother after all, I wasn't going to tolerate that sort of language. She refused to apologize and said I need to stop treating her like a child, and I can't force her to do anything. I was already somewhat stressed from hosting and just didn't want to deal with her anymore. So my husband and I agreed she and Ella should leave after dinner, and we paid for a nearby hotel room. Gil sent me a text saying how inconvenient it was that she couldn't stay late because when Ella got tired, she had to leave and get to the hotel. I've been rethinking it and do feel like an a-hole for not allowing them to stay until morning at least. Comment A, not the a-hole. She doesn't get to throw a tantrum and call you names, not in your house. Maybe she needs to learn some manners, and I would have just kicked them to the curb so you did better than I would. I think she'd have been right at home at the kiddies' table, seeing as her behavior is equal to 1. Not the a-hole. Your sister crossed a line with her language, and you set reasonable boundaries around the dinner. You were hosting a large event, and it's completely understandable to have a designated children's table. Her disrespectful comment was uncalled for, and you have every right to not tolerate that behavior. It's clear you were trying to accommodate her concerns, but when she continued to escalate things, you made the right call to distance yourself. As for the hotel, it's not unreasonable to expect her to manage the situation. Comment B, not the a-hole. Hosting a large event like a Christmas dinner requires managing many details, including arrangements that cater to both children and adults. Your decision to have a children's table was practical and considerate of their needs. While your sister's desire for her daughter to dine with the adults is understandable, her response to your compromise was inappropriate and disrespectful, especially using a slur in your own home. It's reasonable to expect an apology for such behavior, and your action to arrange a hotel stay after her refusal was a firm but fair response to uphold respect in your household. It's beyond reasonable to expect to feel safe from bigots in your own home, family or not. Doesn't matter if it's the first time she's used the F word in front of you. You deserve peace in your own home. Not the a-hole. Comment C, not the a-hole and a way better person than I. I would have shown her the door the moment she insulted me in my own home. Hell no. Right on. I'm at an age where anyone who chooses to disrespect me in my own home is shown the door. Immediately. My home is my safe space. I have to deal with a bunch of crap out in the world. But at home, I get to relax and escape. If my sibling brought both that crap energy and a slur into my home like that, they would have been booted. Post haste. Comment D. Do not feel like you did anything wrong here. Personally, I would not have paid for the hotel after that. I would have kicked her out on the spot and would not have let her stay for dinner. What you did was above and beyond what she deserved, not the a-hole, in any shape or form. Comment E. You're better than me, because that dinner plate would have been snatched before she even got to it. Giving her the benefit of the doubt, it sounds like she could be dealing with issues bigger than seating arrangements. However, that definitely doesn't give her the right to disrespect you, and I think you handled it very well. You set fair boundaries, and maybe after some reflecting, she'll be able to realize she was very much in the wrong. Don't feel guilty for protecting your peace and space. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my father and his girlfriend that the gift she got me was creepy and invasive? I'm expecting my first child, due in February. This is the first grandchild on both sides, so everyone is very excited about it. My father's girlfriend, Lena, fake name, and I have an okay relationship, but we're very different people. I don't like most of the things she likes and vice versa. There's no bad blood between us, but she can be a bit pushy sometimes, so we're not exactly close. One of the biggest differences between me and Lena is our stance on influencer culture. She loves it, I don't. Since I got pregnant, she's been sending me posts on Instagram of random influencers talking about their experiences with childbirth, motherhood, etc. A few months ago, one of her favorite influencers gave birth and filmed the whole thing. She posted a cutesy, poorly edited video of the baby being born and her entire family watching from outside the delivery room with country music playing in the background. Lena sent me that video, and I remember telling her I'd never do something like that. My husband and I celebrated Christmas at my cousin's place with the rest of my family. When it was time for us to exchange and open our gifts, Lena gave me an envelope. Inside was a videographer's business card. She told me she was hiring him to film my birth. I seriously cannot imagine being filmed while going through a medical procedure, and I don't want anyone besides my husband at the hospital with me. I've been clear about that since I announced my pregnancy. I didn't want to embarrass Lena, so I thanked her when she gave me the card. Yesterday, my husband and I had lunch with her and my father, and I told her that while I appreciated the gesture, I didn't feel comfortable with a videographer. I said she didn't have to get me anything else for Christmas, but I'd appreciate it if she didn't hire him. Both she and my father got offended, and we ended up having an argument. At one point, Lena started crying and said she couldn't understand why I'd pass up on the opportunity of creating such a beautiful memento of my child's birth. I replied that I found the idea of having someone film me during such a vulnerable moment to be creepy and invasive, and that this wasn't the first time I expressed I was uncomfortable with it. My father said that it was rude of me to say that and refuse the gift, and he's very disappointed in me. My husband agrees with me, as does pretty much my whole family. I don't really think I did anything wrong, but my father's reaction is freaking me out. Am I the a-hole? Comment A. Not the a-hole. Lena overstepped a huge boundary. Filming such a private medical event without your explicit consent is invasive and frankly bizarre. You were well within your rights to decline the gift, and it's your father who is being unreasonable by not respecting your wishes and boundaries. Forget filming. Lena thought that OP would be okay with a complete stranger in the delivery room with her. I'm not even sure hospitals actually allow this kind of things to happen. At least they don't in my country. My hospital does, but there's documents and a whole procedure me and the videographer would have to go through that I'm not very informed about. Stealing my own comment here because I genuinely think you should ask your father this. Replace having a baby with consummating a marriage. Same level of privacy and vulnerability. Possibly similar level of nudity. And Lena thinks she's entitled to film that. OP, ask your father if he would feel the same if Lena wanted to hire a videographer to film you having sex with your husband or you coming fresh out the shower. This is weird. Comment B. Not the a-hole. Do not tell them when you are in labor and tell the hospital that both of them aren't allowed in the delivery room. I can see Lena whipping out her phone, and if your dad don't got your back during a moment that is purely yours and your husband's, then he can wait outside too. I don't plan on saying anything until the baby's here. And when the baby is here, make sure she doesn't post anything with it in without your consent. Ugh, she is totally going to do that anyway, and then be a public martyr about how OP won't let her post her own grandchild. It's a hill worth dying on. Absolutely. Comment C, not the a-hole. Birth is a deeply personal experience, and you've been clear about your boundaries. Lena's gift ignored that, and it's not rude to say no to something invasive. Your comfort and privacy come first, not her feelings. Not the a-hole. Your boundaries were clear from the beginning, and Lena disregarded them by giving you a gift that directly contradicted what you've expressed. Filming a birth is an incredibly personal decision, and no one should push that on you, no matter how beautiful they think it might be. You handled it with tact initially, thanking her for the gesture and addressing it privately later. Her and your father's reactions are over the top, especially since you've made your stance on this very clear. You're allowed to feel uncomfortable with such an invasive suggestion, and sticking to your boundaries is essential, especially as you prepare for such a monumental life event. Comment D, not the a-hole. Dad, why does your girlfriend want pictures of me at my most vulnerable, showing my breast and fanny to the world? The influencer video she sent me doesn't show anything explicit. It's mostly shot from the waist up, and the boobs are censored. The woman also had a C-section, which I don't plan on having, provided it's safe for me to have a natural birth. Even if nothing like that is shown, I don't like the idea of being filmed while going through it. I mean, even if the edited video doesn't show it, you're still going to be in an exposed and vulnerable state to the stranger cameraman that you don't want. Mate, you're so not at all wrong in your feelings here. This is wildly inappropriate given that you've said no multiple times now. I think she expects the video to only show the cutesy parts, which I also wouldn't want to film, and not the actual graphic part. I've spoken to my husband about this, and the only thing I'm okay with is one picture of us holding the baby once it's out. There are no cutesy parts of childbirth. Next story. Am I the a-hole for saying yes to my boyfriend's public proposal and then turning him down in private? So my 26 female boyfriend, 28 male, and I have been dating for about 3 years. Things have been good, but I've been clear that I'm not ready for marriage just yet. I've told him I need more time to feel comfortable with such a big step. Well, a few weeks ago, we went to a big party hosted by his family for his dad's 60th. I noticed that he was acting a little nervous, but didn't think much of it. Then during the event, he got everyone's attention, got down on one knee, and proposed to me in front of all his friends and family. I was completely caught off guard and panicked. Now I've heard stories about how rejecting someone in public can humiliate them, and I really didn't want to do that to him, especially in front of everyone he cares about. So I said yes in the moment. Everyone cheered, and he looked so happy. I felt horrible for misleading him, but I didn't know what else to do. After the party on the car ride home, I told him privately and explained that while I love him, I'm not ready to get married yet, and that I only said yes to avoid embarrassing him in front of everyone. I thought being honest in private was the best thing to do. He got really upset and said I'd humiliated him even more, because now he has to go back and tell everyone that we're not actually engaged. He said I should have just said no at the party if that's how I felt. I feel terrible that I've hurt him and put him in this position, but I also feel like he put me on the spot in front of everyone without considering my feelings. We've yet to tell his family or anyone, and they keep calling and texting to give their congrats, which is upsetting him even more. And I'm seeing videos his friends posted online of him getting on one knee, so it's pretty public now. So Reddit, am I the a-hole? Should I have just said no in public, or was I right to spare him the embarrassment in the moment? Comment A. Okay, but like, proposing publicly when you know she's not ready? That's kind of manipulative, no? It feels like he cared more about the show than your actual feelings. You were in a tough spot, but he put you there, to be honest. Unless you know they are going to say yes, never do it in public. It's that simple. Man, I don't know why that's so hard for people. I'll have been married a year at the end of January, but we had several long talks about it before I proposed. I bought the rings early to make sure she liked them, etc., etc. So even though she knew I would be asking at some point, she never saw it coming when we went to a heavy metal concert for the band Demon Hunter, and the lead singer called us up on stage by name so I could get on one knee and ask her to marry me in front of 1,000 plus crazy metal fans. I wouldn't have had the balls to set all that up or go through with it if I didn't know 100% what her answer would be. Needless to say, that was a very good night for both of us. She still talks about how much of a surprise and whirlwind it was, and since we agreed to a small, inexpensive wedding, I knew I wanted the proposal to be a big event and give her the spotlight for 15 minutes. Comment B, not the a-hole. He asked you publicly when you'd been clear that you're not ready for marriage yet. You were nice by not embarrassing him. Public proposals should only happen if both people are on the same page about marriage. He set himself up for disappointment by not considering OP feelings beforehand. Comment C, not the a-hole. This could have been written by me. If you see him as a future husband, then I'd recommend just having a long engagement instead of ending the engagement. Usually ending an engagement means the whole relationship is over, and him having to explain that you're not engaged but still together will raise a lot of questions. Not to mention, it will be black mark against you in the eyes of his family and friends. If, however, you don't see yourself marrying him at all, then call it quits now. He wants marriage. If you don't want it or don't want it with him, then you have different ideas of the future. If you're not on board with ever marrying him, then it's just cruel to stay in a relationship with him. I told my now husband a few days after the engagement that while I absolutely saw myself marrying him, I wasn't ready yet, and told him I wanted a long engagement. He understood, and we were engaged for 9 years before we eventually got married. We've now been married for 7 years and have 2 kids. I guess you're right. I didn't want to admit it, 'cause I love him, but there are a few internal reasons why I hesitate to marry him. First, my parents do not really approve him, and I know I'm a grown woman. I shouldn't care what they think, blah, blah. And to be honest, they've sort of come round to him, but marriage is a big step, and I don't want to hear the whole, "I don't want to see you make a decision, you're gonna regret" talk. Also, I'm only admitting this because Reddit is anonymous, but I kind of want him to get his life together just a little bit before we get married. He doesn't have a stable job yet, and I don't want to be that naggy girlfriend. But I just want us to be financially stable before we tie the knot and possibly bring kids into the world. We could survive with my salary as a vet, but maybe it's selfish of me, but I would like to see him contribute a bit more to the pot as well. So it doesn't feel like my money, but more our money. I don't know, maybe that's my own problem though. And that's why your parents don't like him. If you don't want to break up, this is your answer. We stay engaged until we are more financially set. He's either going to step up or not. If he doesn't, move on. Set a timeline you want to see what happens. 1 year, 10 years, your call. Just make certain you don't get pregnant. Next story. Am I the a-hole here for refusing to let my daughter marry her boyfriend because of his criminal past? I, 45 male, have a daughter, 22 female, who has been dating her boyfriend, 25 male, for about a year. Recently he proposed, and she said yes. My daughter is over the moon and is already planning the wedding. However, I have serious concerns about her fiancé's past. He has a criminal record from a few years ago for drug possession and theft. While he claims to have turned his life around and has been clean for a few years, I can't shake off the worry that he might relapse or cause problems for my daughter. I sat down with my daughter and explained my concerns. I told her that I cannot support her marriage to someone with such a troubling history. She was devastated and accused me of not trusting her judgment and not giving him a fair chance. My wife thinks I'm being too harsh and that people can change. She believes we should support our daughter's decision, but I can't seem to get past his past. Now my daughter is threatening to elope if we don't give our blessing, and it's causing a lot of tension in our family. Am I the a-hole here? Comment A. She is an adult. There is no let. You can feel however you want, but it's happening. She's definitely very young, but in the eyes of the law, able to make her own decisions. OP cannot refuse anything. OP can only alienate or support. Exactly. At this point, it's about being in her corner or risking pushing her away. Support doesn't mean you have to agree, but it shows you trust her to make her own choices. Yes, my grandma didn't particularly like my dad at the time my parents married. My granddad said she could either support her daughter or risk never seeing her again. Parents still married now almost 50 years, and my dad did a lot of the physical care for both grandparents in their old age before they passed. Op just needs to make sure his daughter knows he'll always have her back and will be a safe place if she needs. Hopefully he's wrong. Comment B. OP, I'm a dad too, so I get your feelings. The reality is that you cannot stop her from marrying this man. You should be doing everything you can to get to know him and find common ground with him. Support your daughter and be there for her so that she will involve you in her life. If you keep the course you are on, you're going to be on the outside looking in. I wouldn't be happy if I was OP either, but the two realistic options are to get on board and be there for her or push her away And if something does go wrong in the marriage, she won't want to come to you. Either way, she is getting married, so OP has to decide what outcome is best. Comment C. You are not in the position to tell another adult whom to marry. He is speaking from a place of concern, which is understandable, but he also needs to recognize that she's now an adult. If the guy had more serious crimes in his past, like assault or sexual crimes, I'd understand being unable to give his blessing. But even then, he could approach the situation in a way where his daughter didn't see eloping and potentially cutting him out of her life as the only option. Theft and drug possession are extremely common crimes for people who grew up in poverty or other bad situations, potentially without any positive role models to teach them right from wrong. They certainly shouldn't prevent someone from ever turning their life around, especially if he has years of honest living since he was doing those things. Comment D. I had 2 arrests for DUI within 6 weeks of each other, faced the fact I was alcoholic and went to rehab. I haven't had a drink in 42 years. The moral of the story is people do change. I know more people who have developed problems or committed crimes after marriage than before. Well said. People absolutely change, and this applies to theft and substance abuse. I'd be focusing on how her partner treats her and not on some past mistakes. Congrats on your 42 years. You've clearly done very well.